it's now time to move on to the next item of business, which is an urgent question, and I call Sue Webber.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government for what reason the MV Glenrossa will now not be delivered until the second quarter of 2026, with cost estimated to increase by up to £35 million.
Deputy First Minister.
Ferguson Marine have advised that the revised delivery date and the cost increase stem from historic failures in project planning, poor sequencing of work and a loss of focus during the delivery of the MV Glen Sannox. The situation is wholly unacceptable, and I have communicated that in the most direct and robust way that I can to the Yard's leadership.
Sue Webber.
Thank you, Deputy First Minister. Earlier this year, the former CEO of Ferguson Marine, John Pettigrew, told the Public Audit Committee that there was a risk of further delays to the Glenrossa, but this is far worse than we could ever have imagined. Delayed until June 26, and both vessels set to cost upwards of £460 million. CalMac routes have already been pushed to the limit thanks to an ageing fleet, and islanders were counting on the delivery of this lifeline vessel. When was the Deputy First Minister informed that the Glenrossa would be delayed further? And did ministerial pressure and perhaps the poor sequencing of work or cannibalisation of the Glenrossa to complete the Glen Sannox factor in the latest delay? And will this new CEO of Ferguson Marine be yet another scapegoat for the SNP's failure to deliver this lifeline ferry on time and on budget?
Deputy First Minister.
Let me be very clear that this is not a question of scapegoats. This is holding all parties to account for the delivery that is required, and I have been clear that that delivery needs to happen with urgency, discipline and full accountability. In the last few weeks, I have put in place rigorous oversight to hold them fully to account on these issues. We have established a small review team with involvement from CMAL to ensure that we can scrutinise the delivery plan in detail. That is proceeding right now. There is a weekly review group with CMAL and Scottish Government officials, and I have made clear my expectations of the new Chief Executive and the Board, and I met the new Chief Executive to communicate that just shortly before he started at the end of April.
Sue Webber.
Thank you, Deputy First Minister. Bill Calderwood from the Isle of Arran Ferry from the Isle of Arran Ferry Committee said, "The community are at a loss at what more can be said about the continued examples of mismanagement on this project. The programme's gone from delay to delay with little or no obvious consequences for the management of the company or others involved in these failures." So after years of repeated delays, enormous cost overruns and a revolving door of senior figures at Ferguson Marine and CalMac, not one SNP minister has been shown the door. This is an insult to islanders and taxpayers. There can't be any more delays, Deputy First Minister. Islanders are sick to the back teeth of this. So what more will the Deputy First Minister do to further ensure this ferry is delivered on or before April 2026? And will anyone ever be held accountable for this SNP-made crisis?
Deputy First Minister.
On her final point, let me agree with her that I have communicated to the Yard's leadership that there can be no more delays. This morning I met with the shop stewards, with the union members, with workers themselves, and we have agreed a number of additional actions that will amplify their voices in this process to ensure that issues that they identify that, in their view, are causing or impacting on the timescales are escalated immediately to ensure that there is maximum accountability, oversight and action taken about any issues that emerge. She started that last question with talking about islanders. I am in no doubt she will appreciate I represent some of those islands, so I can assure her that my inbox reflects the frustrations that she has just articulated on behalf of Bill Calderwood. Islanders do need to see a resilient ferry network. The Glenrossa needs to be delivered as quickly as possible. We have implemented the additional oversight steps these review groups, we have agreed additional actions with the shop stewards, and I am very happy to work with any member in this chamber if there are specific actions that she thinks I should take to ensure there is that maximum scrutiny. Of course, the board also report to the Net Zero Committee, which is absolutely right and proper, so that there is a parliamentary oversight as well. But the bottom line is that this final vessel needs to be delivered as quickly as possible.
Thank you. There are a lot of interest, and concise questions and answers will enable more members to be involved. I call Kenneth Gibson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Glen Rosa is destined for the Brodick route, but until Ardrossan Harbour is redeveloped, she and sister ship, the Glen Sannox, will only make 3 return sailings each day from Troon rather than 5 from Ardrossan. 18 months ago, I advocated using the Isla-class vessels for the Brodick route short-term until redevelopment of Ardrossan Harbour began. Well, these vessels have only 53% of Glen Sannox and Glen Rosa's capacity. This would be offset by increased sailings and better accessibility through Ardrossan. Given this latest delay and added uncertainty about the Glen Rosa entering service, will the Deputy First Minister urge CalMac and CMAL to reconsider this option?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, we absolutely understand Kenny Gibson and the wider community's views in favour of retaining Ardrossan as the mainland port, and remain committed to ensuring that the Arran ferry service is fit for the future. I agree that all options should be considered, that Transport Scotland should work with CalMac and CMAL to deliver best use of the available resources across the network, and to consider all options to maintain services and to reduce disruption. Obviously, there are limitations on physical and operational fit on routes which need careful consideration, but in spite of those caveats, I think that all options should be considered.
Neil Bibby.
I feel I've gone back in time to 3 years ago when the Cabinet Secretary said the exact same thing about unacceptable delays. This whole ferries fiasco has been a result of a lack of leadership and inconsistent management from owners, agencies and government ministers. Not one of these supposed leaders has taken responsibility. Meanwhile, islanders and workers have been subjected to buck passing and a merry-go-round of ministers and turnaround directors. What leadership is the Scottish Government finally going to show to get these ferries finished and secure a future for the yard? And on that, when will the investment to improve efficiencies at the yard promised by the Scottish Government be delivered?
Deputy First Minister.
The member will know that on that final point, that money has been allocated in the budget this year, and it is to go towards the improvements that the board have identified. We are committed to distributing that funding as soon as possible. That has to be in collaboration with the board, who will determine the improvements that are required. In terms of the other steps that we have taken, I've outlined some of them to Sue Webber, but I'll go through them again. We have taken immediate steps to establish a weekly review group with CMAL and Scottish Government officials to scrutinise that delivery plan. I have asked for additional steps in terms of the new Chief Executive, who's only been in post since the 1st of May, to consider this plan. And there was a number of actions that have been agreed this morning with shop stewards to amplify their voice, because they are often on the ground, identifying issues that might have a knock-on impact on build. At the moment, there is union representation at the board meetings. They get an opportunity to pose questions. What I want to see is a feedback loop, as it were, of issues being escalated immediately that can then be resolved. And as I said to the Conservative MSP, if there are further steps that we can take as the shareholder to ensure that there is maximum scrutiny and review of the plan at board level, then I am very happy to listen to members.
Edward Mountain.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And just to clarify for the Deputy First Minister, the last time Ferguson Marine Port Glasgow reported to the committee was in October 2024. And the only reason we have the dates that we have now is because it was threatened with being asked to come before the committee if they wouldn't reply to our successive letters. Now, Deputy First Minister Andrew Miller, Chairman of Ferguson Marine, sacked his first CEO because of delays at an increasing cost. The second one he appointed left after 6 months. The latest one took over and had to announce further delays. Does the Deputy First Minister have confidence in Andrew Miller? Because I don't think many other people do.
Deputy First Minister.
As convener of the committee to which the board is accountable, I understand the frustration that has been expressed by the convener and the committee about timely responses, but also about this latest delay. There has been a need for consistent leadership of Ferguson Marine. I am pleased with the appointment of Graham Thompson as new Chief Executive. He brings with him decades of commercial experience of building vessels, and obviously I hope that he will apply that to the completion of the Glen Rosa. In terms of the board and trust in the board, I expect the board of Ferguson Marine to demonstrate strong leadership, grip and full accountability for delivering the MV Glen Rosa without further delay or cost escalation. And I have underlined that robustly to the leadership.
Stuart McMillan.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I want to thank the Deputy First Minister for meeting the two shop stewards and myself earlier on today, and I note that the discussion covered many different areas and issues within the yard. But I am also very much assured about the actions that were agreed today between the Deputy First Minister and the shop stewards. But also, can the Deputy First Minister confirm to the Chamber that she will continue to have that regular dialogue with the shop stewards as we move forward to try to turn the yard round?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, I thank the member for his remarks and for arranging the meeting this morning with the shop stewards, which was a very powerful meeting in terms of the content that was shared with me by the shop stewards, but also the emotion of a workforce that knows that their talent and their skills are not the reason for this latest delay, and want to ensure that there is a future, a commercial future for Ferguson Marine that relies on timely delivery of the Glen Rosa. So the stakes are high. The agreement that I gave to the shop stewards today was to have regular dialogue with them, to put a number of items that they had raised with me directly to the board, and to look at what other steps around reassurance and scrutiny we can incorporate, including looking at whether there are third parties that can go in and provide that scrutiny for us.
Paul Sweeney.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and certainly I commend Graham Thompson as an excellent appointment. I used to work with him on the delivery of HMS Duncan back in 2012, and he's a very competent programme director. But the issue fundamentally is the yard is driven by milestone payments, and a big milestone payment was delivery of Glen Sannox. And to deliver Glen Sannox, they had to cannibalise parts from Glen Rosa and put manors from Glen Rosa into Glen Sannox. That was known as long ago as October. Is it not just the case that simply these trade-offs have to be accepted given the nature of how complex this programme is, and that the government's not cited on these issues as the main shareholder is a problem? Perhaps there's an issue there with the chairman continuing to sack directors and CEOs without proper management handovers and not without proper understanding of the trade-offs and difficulties that this programme is enduring.
Deputy First Minister.
I think the member raises an interesting point, because we will all know of the immense pressure on government and on Ferguson Marine to deliver the Glen Sannox, quite rightly, because it was overdue, it had been delayed, and because island communities relied on it. And I am pleased and relieved that the Glen Sannox is now serving our island routes. But Ferguson Marine's letter is quite clear that that meant all focus was on the Glen Sannox to the detriment of the Glen Rosa. He also asked about the actions of the board or of the chair of the board. And I would politely suggest that the board is responsible here they are ultimately accountable for ensuring that the leadership delivers, not just according to key milestones, but delivers according to timetables that are provided and according to budget as well. So it is right and proper that I communicate with them directly and robustly, but that they are also accountable for who serves in primary leadership roles in order to deliver the results that we want to see, which is the Glen Rosa serving the island communities as the Glen Sannox is currently.
Willie Rennie.
I was pleased to hear the Cabinet Secretary say that it's not the fault of the workers. That leaves the leadership. And who appointed the leadership? Who appointed, who brought in the new owner of the yard, who bought the yard? It's the Scottish Government, and the Cabinet Secretary acts as if it's nothing to do with her today. It's the two ferries, now with these soaring costs, means it's £1 million per worker to build these two ferries. Now, with all the things that she said when she was on the back benches about the performance of the government, is she surprised that not one single minister has resigned as a result of this fiasco?
Deputy First Minister.
I understand the strength of Willie Rennie's question. I would humbly suggest that the fact that I'm answering questions here, and I've stated quite clearly the actions that I have taken, suggests I am not in any way shirking responsibility of the government or my current brief in holding the board to account, who in turn hold the leadership to account. And I have been crystal clear with the board what I expect, and I am extremely disappointed to be answering questions here today, not because I think the questions are wrong, but because of this additional delay which has prompted these questions. So these island communities need, demand, require the Glen Rosa to be serving them. My priority is to ensure that all additional scrutiny, all review steps that can be implemented are implemented, so that this timetable is delivered as the leadership have suggested it will be, and that we get the Glen Rosa out on the seas as quickly as possible. And as I have offered to other parties, if there is further information, if there is further communication that is required with members of Parliament over and above the accountability that already exists between the NZEC Committee and the board, then I am willing to explore that.
Douglas Ross.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. When he gave the green light for these contracts, John Swinney hailed the absence of any banana skins. So after the latest cost increase and delay, how would Kate Forbes rate John Swinney's ability to spot banana skins?
Well, I'm going to be very open about the challenges that these contracts have faced, and I have previously apologised to communities. I will apologise again, because these additional delays are completely unacceptable, as are the budget increases.
And Graham Simpson.
Thank you. Kate Forbes is having the mickey taken out of her here. Can she tell us which budget is she going to raid to fund this latest increase?
Deputy First
Well,
Minister.
obviously that additional increase will be met from the government's budget, and earlier today I had a conversation with the Finance Committee about how we will meet that budget, but quite clearly the government balances its budget every year, and so we will meet those costs.
Thank you. That concludes the urgent question. The next item of business is consideration of business motion 17531 in the name of Jamie Hepburn on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau setting out a business programme. And I call on Jamie Hepburn to move the motion.
Move, Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Minister. No member has asked to speak to the motion. The question is that motion 17531 be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. The motion is therefore agreed. The next item of business is consideration of business motions 17532 and 17533 on a Stage 1 timetable for a bill. I ask any member who wishes to speak to the motions to press their request to speak button, and I call on Jamie Hepburn on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau to move the motions.
Move, Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Minister. No member has asked to speak to the motions. Therefore, the question is that motions 17532 and 17533 be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. The motions are therefore agreed. The next item of business is consideration of two Parliamentary Bureau motions, and I ask Jamie Hepburn on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau to move motions 17534 on approval of an SSI and 17535 on designation of a lead committee.
Move, Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Minister. And the question on these motions will be put at decision time, and there are 7 questions to be put as a result of today's business. The first question is that Amendment 17524.3 in the name of Marie Todd, which seeks to amend motion 17524 in the name of Miles Briggs, on review of additional support for learning and implementation of mainstreaming be agreed? Are we all agreed? Yes. The amendment is therefore agreed. The next question is that Amendment 17524.1, in the name of Pam Duncan-Glancy, which seeks to amend Motion 17524 in the name of Miles Briggs on review of additional support for learning and implementation of mainstreaming, be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. The amendment is therefore agreed. And the next question is that Motion 17524 in the name of Miles Briggs, as amended, on review of additional support for learning and implementation of mainstreaming be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. The motion is therefore agreed. The motion as amended is therefore agreed. Now, can I remind members that if the amendment in the name of Gillian Martin is agreed to, the amendment in the name of Michael Mara will fall. And the next question is that Amendment 17525.3, in the name of Gillian Martin, which seeks to amend Motion 17525 in the name of Douglas Lumsden on protecting Scotland's oil and gas, be agreed. Are we all agreed? No. Yes. The Parliament is not agreed, therefore we'll move to a vote and there will be a short suspension to allow members to access the digital voting system.